Oh man, just look at this. In the late 80s and throughout the entire decade of the 90s, there was one particular actress who ruled the romantic comedy world with an iron grip. Meg Ryan wasn't merely a celebrity, she was a legitimate cultural force. With that radiant, contagious grin and a natural, girl-next-door vibe, she became the person every guy dreamed of dating and every woman aspired to emulate. Her drawing power was off the charts. At the height of her fame, Meg Ryan could guarantee a hit just by having her name on the poster. She was absolute box office magic, and the industry was well aware of it. But how did a young woman from Fairfield, Connecticut, born Margaret Mary Emily Ann Hyra, transform into one of the most adored icons of her era? And perhaps the bigger mystery, where did she disappear to? Let's take a look back. Long before she was crowned America's sweetheart, she was just Margaret Mary Emily Ann Hyra, a student at NYU studying journalism and looking for ways to cover her rent. Born on November 19, 1961, in Fairfield, Connecticut, Meg didn't grow up with stars in her eyes. She wanted to be a reporter. To earn some cash while navigating college, she landed roles in television commercials for brands like Burger King and Aim toothpaste. That little side gig ended up altering the course of her entire life. Her debut on the big screen happened in 1981 at the age of 20, playing the daughter of Candice Bergen in Rich and Famous. It was a tiny part, but the door was officially open. She decided to use the stage name Meg Ryan, pulling her grandmother's maiden name for the transition. Then she got her big break, landing the role of Betsy Stewart on the legendary CBS soap As the World Turns. She stayed with the show from 1982 to 1984, and her character's romance actually drove the show's popularity to new heights. People were starting to pay attention to this blonde, blue-eyed talent with the bubbly energy. By 1984, she moved on from daytime TV and headed for Los Angeles, ready to see if she could make it in the big leagues. The year 1986 changed everything for her. Meg landed a brief but iconic role in Top Gun as Carol Bradshaw, the wife of Goose. She wasn't the lead, but her warmth and that unmistakable smile stuck with the audience. She later mentioned to Rolling Stone that this was the moment people started recognizing her face in public, stopping her to say she was Goose's wife. That's when the reality of her rising fame truly set in. Later that same year, she appeared in Armed and Dangerous with comedy greats John Candy and Eugene Levy. It looked great on paper, but the movie was a total flop, landing a dismal 9% on Rotten Tomatoes and vanishing from theaters. In 1987, she got a nod from the Independent Spirit Awards for Promised Land, but it was Inner Space in 1987 where the magic really happened. Watching it even now, the chemistry between her and Dennis Quaid is undeniable. That's the beauty of cinema. Sometimes you get to witness two people falling in love for real while the cameras are rolling. She was hilarious, cozy, and incredibly sharp, with a style that never felt forced. Hollywood took notice immediately. Suddenly, she wasn't just the girl from Top Gun. She was the most sought-after actress in town. Inner Space didn't turn her into a global superstar overnight, but it proved what she was capable of. It showcased the timing, the charm, and that relatable vulnerability that would eventually define an entire generation of romance on film. This was Meg Ryan right on the edge of superstardom, the calm before the massive explosion of her career. In 1988, she worked with Dennis Quaid again in the thriller DOA. By then, their real-life romance was front-page news, and fans loved seeing the couple together. She also starred in The Presidio alongside legends like Sean Connery, a clear sign that she was now playing in the same league as the industry's heaviest hitters. Then came the movie that wasn't just a hit, but a total phenomenon. Directed by Rob Reiner and penned by Nora Ephron, When Harry Met Sally. Tackled the age-old question of whether men and women can truly be friends. Meg's performance as Sally Albright was flawless, quirky, intelligent, and deeply human. And of course, there was the famous scene at Katz's Delicatessen. "I'll have what she's having" became one of the most legendary lines in film history. The movie made over $92 million, earned her Golden Globe and BAFTA nominations, and officially crowned her the queen of romantic comedies. The year 1990 saw her first collaboration with Tom Hanks in Joe vs. the Volcano. It was a weird, experimental film where she played 3 different characters. It didn't do well at the box office, but the spark between her and Hanks was undeniable. By 1991, she shifted gears for Oliver Stone's The Doors, playing Jim Morrison's girlfriend, Pamela Courson. It was a darker, more dramatic role that proved she had serious range. On Valentine's Day that year, she and Dennis Quaid got married. becoming the ultimate golden couple of Hollywood. The 90s truly belonged to her. After welcoming her son, Jack, in 1992, she jumped right back into work for one of her biggest hits ever. 1993's Sleepless in Seattle reunited her with Tom Hanks and Nora Ephron, creating a modern-day fairy tale that grossed $227 million. They were the new iconic duo of the silver screen. However, Meg wanted to avoid being pigeonholed. In 1994, she delivered a raw, powerful performance as an alcoholic mother in When a Man Loves a Woman, earning critical acclaim. She balanced this with lighter fare like IQ and the hit French Kiss in 1995. In 1996, she went back to drama for Courage Under Fire, losing weight and training hard to play a military officer alongside Denzel Washington, proving she was far more than just a rom-com lead. She even lent her voice to the animated Anastasia in 1997, winning over a whole new generation of fans. By 1998, she starred in City of Angels and reunited with Hanks for You've Got Mail, which pulled in a staggering $250 million. By the end of the 90s, Meg was making $10 to $15 million per movie. She was the undisputed face of romance in Hollywood. But while things looked perfect on the outside, trouble was brewing. In 2000, while filming Proof of Life in Ecuador, Meg began an affair with her co-star Russell Crowe. The news hit like a bombshell. America's sweetheart was suddenly caught in a scandal, and her wholesome image was destroyed overnight. Dennis Quaid filed for divorce, and the public turned on her, labeling her a betrayer of the values she portrayed on screen. The fling with Crowe didn't last, and while Meg later said the marriage had been failing for a long time, the public narrative was already set in stone. As the late Carrie Fisher once pointed out, when you go against your public archetype so drastically, the industry can be very unforgiving. Hollywood, which once couldn't get enough of her, suddenly went cold. She tried to keep going with Kate and Leopold in 2001, but the momentum was shifting. In 2003, she made a risky move within The Cut, a very explicit, dark thriller. Seeing the woman who played Sally Albright in graphic scenes was a shock to audiences. The movie failed at the box office, and a notoriously awkward, defensive interview with Michael Parkinson only made her public image worse. At the same time, people began fixating on her changing looks. While Meg never confirmed any work, the shift in her facial structure was obvious and became a major talking point. When she appeared at the 2016 Tony Awards, the online commentary was brutal. Hollywood is notoriously hard on aging actresses, but it's even harsher on those who visibly try to stop the clock. Casting directors began to see her differently, and the roles started to vanish. In 2004, Against the Ropes flopped, and by the mid-2000s, the woman who once commanded top-tier salaries was struggling to find projects. She shifted her focus to family, adopting her daughter, Daisy True, from China in 2006. Behind the scenes, she was also dealing with significant health issues, specifically debilitating arthritis in her hips that often left her with a limp. These weren't the stories the tabloids wanted, but they were her reality. She did some smaller projects like the women and guest spots on shows like Curb Your Enthusiasm, but it felt like she was no longer interested in chasing the Hollywood dream. She moved to New York to raise her kids away from the spotlight. She had a long-term relationship with John Mellencamp for nearly a decade, but that eventually ended too. In 2015, she stepped behind the camera for her directorial debut, Ithaca. It wasn't a massive hit, but it allowed her to control her own story away from the scrutiny of her appearance. Then, in 2023, she finally returned to the genre she defined with What Happens Later, which she directed and starred in alongside David Duchovny. It showed she still had that magic, now seasoned with more life experience. She has been candid about the impossible standards of beauty in the industry, choosing to ignore the noise about her appearance. Now in her 60s and living in Montecito, she seems to have found a sense of peace, focusing on wellness and her own creative projects. She's watching her son, Jack Quaid, build his own successful acting career, continuing the legacy. Looking back at her path from a college student in toothpaste ads to the top of the world, Meg Ryan's life is more interesting than any movie. While the scandal with Russell Crowe was the turning point, the deeper issue was the pressure to remain frozen in time. She had a beauty that would have aged beautifully, but the changes to her face created a barrier between her and the audience. This isn't just a critique of her, it's a critique of an industry that demands perfection. We see it with men too, look at Mickey Rourke. Meanwhile, someone like Tom Hanks aged naturally and stayed in the public's good graces. When the warmth and essence of a performer are altered, the audience loses that connection. Meg Ryan was an absolute powerhouse who defined an era, but the choices she made to hold on to the past ended up costing her the very things that made her iconic. The real takeaway is about the harsh reality of Hollywood and the importance of embracing the inevitable passage of time. Thanks so much for hanging out and watching today. If you enjoyed this deep dive into Meg's career and want to see more retrospectives like this, don't forget to hit the like button and leave a comment with your thoughts. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss the next one. I really appreciate the support, and I'll catch you guys in the next video.